we talked about Matt Vierling, talked about Tyler Holton, even Andy Ibanez. I mean, I posted it on Twitter, just like what offseason addition has been the most impactful. We mentioned Vierling, Nick Maton hasn't been the greatest, but even Chase and Shreve, I think, deserves some credit. Just like the move Scott Harris made, have they kind of changed your mind on the offseason that he's had? I know this was a topic you kind of wanted to get into.
Yeah, it's interesting. Since he's come back from the injury, Matt Vierling has been pretty productive. He's been in the leadoff role occasionally, especially against left-hand pitchers, and he's got a OPS plus of something like about 112, which is great. It's certainly on, and it's heading up as we speak. So no matter that Maton is struggling, and obviously Donnie Sands is in the minors and will probably be just maybe a bit player, maybe a call up here and there to catch a game if they have an injury. If Matt Vierling can become either a starting outfielder or a steady fourth outfielder, that really swings the trade in the Tigers' direction a little bit. I mean, obviously Soto is pitching well right now in Philadelphia, but at least they've gotten a player now who is a part of the lineup and producing. And maybe Maton comes back. We don't know. But I really enjoyed Vierling. He's going to the opposite field really well, with hitting the ball with authority. I love how he runs the bases. I mean, the guy runs really hard. You can tell he can take the extra base. And he made that diving catch yesterday. Looked very confident doing it. So he's playing well. And when you add him to how good Tyler Holton's been, and when you look at Ibanez, who has come back from that major slump and is now hitting very well, all of a sudden Scott Harris's offseason, which looked pretty blah, it doesn't look like an A+ or anything, but now it looks far closer to a C+ than it looked, a month ago. So, and we talked about this in the offseason. The roster gets built, in my opinion, from two directions, right? From the top down, but also from the bottom up. And when you make moves at the bottom of your roster, you're just trying to find those guys who are a little bit better than the ones they replaced. I always say it's that 2%, but whatever it is, 1%, 3%, whatever percent you want to put on it. But you just get a little incrementally better at the bottom of the roster, and that has an effect over time. Obviously, you want to build at the top of the roster and find premium talent. That's more important, in my opinion. And he didn't do much of that. But I think we can see now the benefits of some of those guys who they got to bolster the bottom of the roster are paying off a little bit.
I think it was like that, when the Tigers, we wanted them to sign veterans like a Gene Segura or trade for a Colton Wong. In reality, Andy Ibanez has probably been a little bit better than guys like that. Even like a Brandon Drury, sure, as his numbers look better than Andy Ibanez's, yes, but did you really want to commit 3 years to him? I think I'd rather take what Andy Ibanez is doing this year. And
as fans, we know who players are around the league who have had some success, and we would always kind of lean toward those types of players like a Drury over an Ibanez in the offseason because that's who we know. And this is where, we get to have fun having our opinion versus Scott Harris is paid to have a better opinion, okay, and to know everything about everybody, and to have the ability to speculate who could fill a hole and be a productive player. And someone in the Tigers organization who reports to Harris obviously brought back some good word on Ibanez. He started off hot, went into that abysmal slump, has come out of it, much to his credit. Everybody in the world thought he was going to be DFA'd. I mean, that's practically his middle initials was DFA. So, but he made it through that, and he is contributing. There's no question about it, defensively and offensively.
Like, just to like the Scott Harris offseason, the only real gripes you could really have is maybe Matt Boyd, but you didn't really see that injury coming. That's kind of a freak accident. And then Jeimer Candelario, I think Nick Maton was supposed to be like the replacement for him. I think some fans could maybe be a little upset with that just because he's been really good for Washington, and Washington's probably going to trade him at the deadline and get something for him. But other than that, I think most of the moves like around the border the smaller moves. He's really hit on a lot of them, like Tyler Holton. Tyler Holton's a rookie this year. He's been one of the best rookies in the American League. Even Mason Englert, we haven't mentioned him, but
Yeah.
he's kind of been thrown into the fire this year, and he's been up and down, but I think that's been a positive development for them as well.
He's kept his nose above water, right?
Yeah,
He's like right here. The water is down to here about his chin, but his nose is above the water. So good for him. And that's for a Rule 5 guy with no experience. That's fine.
Yeah, it always seems like he's on the cusp of like, maybe, but then he kind of just has a couple good, appearances, and you're like, well, he's gonna stick around. But yeah, I think it's been a successful offseason. I think again, it was a year to see what the Tigers had to give opportunities to guys instead of giving Gene Segura at bats or a Brandon Drury or these guys like a Mitch Haniger. I remember was a guy a lot of Tigers fans wanted. I think they just wanted to give as many at bats as they could to like a Kerry Carpenter and a Matt Vierling. And I think it has paid off in some ways for Scott Harris. So I'm right there with you. I would probably say C+, like B- for his offseason. And I think it'll be interesting to see what they can get for maybe a Michael Lorenzen. I don't know if Andy Ibanez has any trade. But I mean, we haven't even mentioned really Zach McKinstry too, who has been one of the better players from that group as well. So I think it's been a positive development for the Tigers to see some of these guys that fans kind of like scoffled at and really didn't think much of. Like Andy Ibanez, no one would have thought he'd be our number 3 hitter. Zach McKinstry's hit leadoff for us like the majority of the year. It's just one of those fun things about baseball is you never really know what to expect in a 162 game season.